everybody, thanks for tuning in. My name is Hyunmin Lee and I'm an animator at the Walt Disney Animation Studios. I've been at Disney since 2007 and my first film was The Princess and the Frog, but recently I got to be the animation supervisor for Anna on Frozen 2. So that was very exciting and I'm going to show you how to draw Anna today. Okay, so we're gonna get started, and so what we'll start with is a nice sheet of paper here. I'm gonna use two pencils. I'm gonna use a red pencil and a black pencil. This is just a normal graphite pencil. And the reason being that I like using the red pencil to just rough out some outlines and some guidelines, stuff that I'll draw really lightly just to help me know where to put certain parts of her face and her clothes and everything like that. And it's always a helpful guide for you to have that. You don't always have to have it. It doesn't always have to be red. You can use any color that you like as long as it's different from the black that you're using for your pencil. So we're going to start with the red. And for Anna, we're going to start with her head, and I'm going to start with a circle, and I'll draw it somewhere here. Her head is actually a bit like an egg shape. So to do the egg shape, I'm going to add a little to that circle and add a little bit of a pointier curve below that circle. So overall I get this egg shape outline here for her head. And for Anna, this time we're gonna draw what we usually call a 3/4 view. And the 3/4 view, what that means is we're not looking exactly at the front of her face, and we're not looking exactly at the side of her face. We're kind of looking in the middle. She's going to be looking slightly towards the left side of the paper here. And so let's start with a center line. And because it's not flat on, it's not going to be a straight line, we'll draw it a slightly curved line. Like that, going from the top to the bottom, like that. And so you can see how this half is a little smaller than this half. And that's going to indicate how the 3/4 view makes this side, you'll see this side of her face a little more and this side a little less. So her eyes and everything on this side is going to be a little foreshortened, which means that we'll see a little bit less of it, so it'll be a little shorter, smaller. And so just to keep helping us with the guides, after this line we're going to draw another line going horizontally, crossing that line somewhere around the middle. You can make it another nice curve like that. So this will indicate that we're looking a little bit down onto her head, so we're not looking at it front on. And so those are nice guidelines that we can have to start planning her head and her face and everything. And so we're going to start placing her eyes. And Anna has almond-shaped eyes, so if you've seen an almond, they're kind of shaped like that, with little stripes on them. So it's basically that shape that we're going to draw on each side of this center line to see where her eyes are going to go. And we're going to use this line as a guideline. And so I'm going to draw one almond shape over here, and on the right side of that line, another almond shape over here, and those are where her eyes are going to go. And as you can see, this one's a little bit larger than this one, and that's from the foreshortening that I talked about earlier. And we're going to just lightly put a curve over those eye shapes to indicate where her eyebrows are going to go. And just to see where her nose is going to go, we're going to follow this line and go somewhere in between where these two lines meet and where that line ends, and somewhere in that middle part I'll kind of draw a little flat oval there, and that's kind of going to be where her nose is gonna be. And then right under her nose we'll indicate a nice slight V shape to show her mouth, where her mouth is gonna go. And later on I'll go into the details more, but with Anna's eyes, I tend to draw it less of just a simple curve, but instead of that, I'll draw it more like a V shape like that. And that just kind of gives her smile just a little bit more of an accent, and I think it goes really well with Anna's really positive and fun personality. So after that, so we have the head shape, we have the eyes and the nose and the mouth. Just follow that horizontal line that you drew there, and then we can indicate where her ears are gonna go very lightly. And then from where her ears are, we can start drawing where her neck will go. Just very lightly indicate where her shoulders will be. And so these lines that we're drawing with the red, they're really rough. They're meant to be rough and they're meant to be light. They don't have to be perfect or exact. You're going to go over them with the black pencil, so it can be that you correct it as you go, and you can also erase it as you go too, so don't worry too much about being perfect with these lines. So now that we have this basic roadmap for us in place, we're gonna go and start with the black pencil. And so we're gonna start with the outline of her face, and this big egg shape that we drew earlier is gonna be a nice guideline for us. So right around where we drew that eyebrow, I'm gonna start defining her forehead. And first I'm gonna start following that egg-shaped guideline that we went through. Just around here, I'm actually going to draw the line, a little curve outside of the egg shape, and what that's gonna do is give her a little bit more fleshy cheek shape there. So just around there, right under where that horizontal line is, you can go outside the egg shape a little bit and then go back to that egg shape, and then right where that cross line meets the bottom of the egg shape is going to be where her chin is. You can follow that line to finish her jawline there. So again, there's the forehead, there's her cheek, and then her chin, and there's her face outline. And I'm not going to draw the ears just yet. We're going to leave the ears till after we draw her hair, because if you remember, her hair tends to cover up her ear a bit, so we'll leave that till later. Now we're going to draw her eyes, and her eyes are a really important part. And the eyes, we always say, for every character, they're kind of like the window into their soul. And since Anna has that feisty and energetic, positive soul and spirit, then we want to make sure that shows through her eyes. And so we're going to follow this almond-shaped outline that we drew. And I'm going to start by drawing the upper lid line and the lower lid line first. And for the upper lid line, what I'm going to do is, it's going to be a shape made by two lines. And the shape is going to start thin and get thicker like this. And then you can finish it with an eyelash. And what that's going to do is help you make it look like there's her eyelashes, and how her eyelashes get longer towards the her outer eye corners. So that will kind of make that graphic shape to indicate that. So from this top part of the almond shape, I'm not going to start right at the bottom. I'm going to start somewhere right here around the middle. So draw nice two arch shapes like this. And from the inner side of her eye, it's gonna get thicker towards the outside. And then you can finish with a nice little eyelash shape there. And we'll color in black to show the thickness of her eyelashes. And for her bottom lid line, I'm not gonna connect these lines all the way. I'm gonna leave a little gap for both sides. So start following that lower side of the almond shape, leave that little gap there. And then for the bottom line, sometimes it's nice to give it a little bit of flatness towards the inner corner there. So we have one eye there. I'm gonna do a similar thing to the eye on this side, and this eye is gonna be a little wider because we're seeing more of it. So start from the middle there. Two lines forming that arch shape that gets thin to thick. Finish with a nice full eyelash shape. Color it in nice and dark with your pencil. Then same for the lower lid that we did on the other side. We're going to leave a gap. So leaving a gap from here. Just go down like that, follow the almond shape. Then a little flatter line here towards the inner corner. And then right above the upper lid line, the lashes that we drew here, I'm going to draw a line just a little bit above them that goes a similar direction with them, and that's going to be her socket line. And so the next thing we're going to draw are her eyeballs. And if you look at your own eyes, you get that circle in the middle. And then you have another darker circle in the middle. And that's going to be your pupil and iris. And just to add to that, for the drawing, what we're going to do is we're going to draw a little circle that indicates the light hitting the eye and it's going to make her eye look like it's shining, a little more sparkly, get a little more sparkle that we have in Anna's personality in her eyes. So let's draw the eyeballs. We're going to draw the eyeballs a little bit towards the right side of her eye, and what that's going to do is it's going to make her look like she's looking at us. So let's start with this side. Then, because this side is foreshortened, the circle is going to be more like an oval. And then on this side, it's going to be more a full circle. And so inside those circles, we're going to start with the little circle to indicate the light hitting her eyes. And then it's going to be the circle inside, color it black. That's going to be her pupil there. And then same thing on this side, little circle for the light. And another circle for the pupil, color it nice and dark. And on top of that, we can shade in the rest of her eye just to make it show the color of her iris. And sometimes what you can do is make the top part underneath her eyelashes a little darker And that's kind of like the shadow coming from her eyelashes. And it'll make the eyes look like they're getting a little bit more light into them too. So there we have her eyes. And we're gonna draw her eyebrows. Her eyebrows are similar, almost similar in the way we drew her upper eyelids, but we're gonna do the opposite. We're gonna start with an inner edge, and we're gonna do 2 lines that create an arch like that, and we're gonna start thick on the inner side and get thinner towards the outer side. So here we're gonna start with the edge. Two lines like that, so it goes from thick here to thin here. Same on the other side. You have that inner edge. And 2 nice arcs that connect at the end there, where you have the thick going to the thin. And you can slightly shade that in too. Her eyebrows are a little bit on the darker side. And see, we already have her eyes and her eyebrows. So now we're going to draw her nose. And Anna has a really nice long nose bridge with a cute button nose at the end. We're going to very lightly indicate her nose bridge with a little curve. And the curve is going to be right on the left side of the center line here. And so it'll kind of imagine, you can kind of imagine that it goes from this inner edge of that eyebrow. If you imagine that connects just next to her eye there, you can draw that little curve, and that's going to be her nose bridge. And for her nose, we're going to draw it a little simple, kind of like an upside down triangle. And that's going to be where her nostrils will be. And we're going to put it right around that little circle we put when we were doing the guidelines to place her nose. And so just imagine that line connects. You don't have to actually draw it. And so that's kind of where we're going to start that little upside down triangle. There's her nose, and from this end, give it a little line that you can imagine connecting there. It's nice to not connect it because her nose bridge isn't very, very pronounced. It's a little lower, but this will give you the indication of the edge of her nose and the little nice button nose that she has. And so now we're going to draw her mouth. And we're going to start with the upper lip. And like I said before, it's going to be a nice little V shape. And it's going to be 2 parts. There's this side, and we're going to add a little volume to it. And there's this side. We're going to add a little volume to the center of it too. And then towards the edges, you can give it a nice little curl like that. That'll give her a nice little smile. So let's start with one side of the V, give it a little volume, and then there's the other side of the V, a little volume towards the center there, and a nice little curl to give her a nice little smile. And for her bottom lip, we're just going to make it a simpler curve. Anna doesn't have very thick lips, but she has very expressive lips and mouth shapes. And she definitely smiles a lot, so we have a nice little smile for her. And you can also shade it in. What I also like to do sometimes with the lower lip is only shade it towards the outer edges and leave a little light patch in the middle there. And what that does, it makes it feel like her lips are a little bit shinier and you get a little light hitting that lip there. And so, see, now we have her eyes, and we have her nose and mouth and eyebrows. So we almost have her whole face there. And now that we have those, we can add her freckles. She has very cute little freckles. So you can just put some dots right around her cheek, a little over her nose, right there. And so now, before we start drawing her hair and drawing her ears and everything, I'm gonna go back to the red pencil for a while so that we can start planning out where her hair's gonna go. And so Anna has these cute bangs that fall on her forehead. And if you imagine this is her face seen from this front, and that's the center line, it doesn't start from the center, it starts a little bit on this side. So you get another two almond-like shapes for her bangs there. So we're gonna do the same here. It's gonna be a little bit on the right side of that center line. And just for now, roughly, we're gonna put a nice big almond shape there for one side of her bangs, and then another one on this side for the other side of the bangs. And then she also has the rest of her hair covering her head, so this oval is just her head part. So just to add the volume of her entire hair there, just draw a nice circle line around. And then we're gonna indicate where her braids are gonna go. Her braids kind of fall from the side of her head and they drape over the top of her ears. And then they go around, wrap around to the back of her head. So it's gonna be her hair, and that's gonna be her braid kind of wrapping around towards the back. We're gonna get see a little bit of the braids on this side too. And for the rest of her hair, she lets it down, and you can just draw it going down like that, or we can imagine maybe Gale is around. No, in that case, we can give it a little bit more direction, like it's blowing in the wind. So let's give it a nice overall swoop this way. And while I'm doing that, I might start indicating where her clothes are going to be. So that's where her neck's going to be. So we're going to put an indication of where her coat collar is. Her coat shoulder is going to fall somewhere above where the shoulder line is. It's the other coat collar. It's the other coat shoulder. And the coat is open in the middle, so we have that open part. And then inside, we won't see a lot of it, but we have her dress. So there's her dress collar. She has a cool button here. And then underneath that coat that we won't see a lot, but she has a pretty square neckline there, so can indicate that line of her neckline that we see between the open part of her cloak. And there's also these two pins on both sides of the open side of the cloak, and a chain that connects them to keep the coat on. So now we're done with the red pen, and we're gonna go back to the black pencil, red pencil that is. So, okay, so let's go back to the hair. So we drew these simple shapes for the hair, but we're gonna make them a little more loose and just show how the hair is gonna be parting and bunching up in parts. So we start the parting there. You can draw one little wedge and a bigger one like that, and then finish off this big shape here. And because there's a little bit of wind, we're gonna put a little wedge curve here, maybe another one here, just to feel like the wind is kicking up the bangs a little bit. And one thing that's nice to do when you're drawing hair is you can draw these big shapes, but within those big shapes, you can start drawing these lines inside those shapes. And because hair is made of all these different strands, you don't have to draw all the different strands, but these lines will help make it feel like the strands of hair are being seen. And we can do a few flyaways like that too. And we'll do the same thing for the bangs on this side, a little wedge here. Bigger wedge here, maybe some lines to give it a little bit of those hair strands. And then we're gonna start drawing the braids. We're not gonna see a lot of the braids, so we're gonna make them pretty simple looking. So with braids, sometimes when I'm doing simple braids, I make them links like this. So imagine we're gathering the hair from the side of her head. Gathers here, and then we're gonna create one link there, and then the other link is going to start wrapping around towards the back. Start add some of the strands there. Then we'll get a little bit of the braids on this side too, and then we can finish the top part of her hair by adding the top rest of her hair there. Can add a few lines to show where the parting is. And now we can actually start drawing her ears. And her ears are gonna be like a reverse C shape. And usually you can draw a little line inside there to indicate just a little bit of the structure inside the ear. But what's happening right now is that her hair is covering the top part, so we're only going to see this part, and that's what we're going to draw. We're going to start with a little wedge to show the hair in front of her ear, and here's the bottom of that reverse C. It's the bottom of her ear, a line for the inside of the ear, and you might just see a tiny bit of her ear on this side. Sometimes we don't, but I'll just draw it in anyway. Okay, so we have the top part of her hair. We're going to leave the bottom part of her hair because right now the body and her clothes are all in front of the hair, so we're going to finish that part first. So let's start with the neck, and then draw the coat collar, and we're going to imagine it wrapping from the back of her neck coming forward like this. That's the coat collar. It's the other side. There's their shoulder. And then the middle opening part of her cloak. Here's her other shoulder. And then inside that, we're going to draw her dress collar. We won't see a lot of it. And then there's her button there. We have the nice Arundel wheat pattern in that button. And then we have this line here, that's the part of her square neckline that we're seeing in between the open cloak. And we have the two pins, and just draw a simple line to indicate the chain. If you look very closely at the chain, each chain link is actually that wheat shape too, and they're all linked together. And if you want to do that, you can actually draw all of those too. We're going to skip that part because we don't have a ton of time right now. But we will draw some of the line patterns that we have on her cloak. And so we have one line that goes from her shoulder on that's that side. On this side, it's probably going to be almost hidden, or it'll be kind of like that edge there. And there's another line going right in between these two spots. So we have the lines on both sides. For the lines too, actually, if they're pinking lines, and if you look very closely, they're actually these little jagged pieces of black fabric that are showing. And so you can go ahead and draw those in too. But for now, we're gonna just quickly shade in the collars. You can give it a lighter shade for her coat, a bit darker for her dress underneath there. And so we have her clothes there, and now we're going to draw the rest of her hair. And so for the rest of her hair, it's flowing a little freely with the wind, so you can be a little freer with it. Just let your lines flow. Do the wedges, the little wedges and the big wedges, kind of like we did with the bangs here, to show how the hair's kind of clumping together and then they part. But you can be a lot freer with it. Just like let your lines flow as you draw hair flying in the wind. And also you can always add those lines inside the shapes just to show the strands and the direction that the hair's going. And so while I'm at it, since I have a red pencil already and Anna's red hair, I'll go in and shade her hair red just to give a little bit more color. And there we go. There we have Anna. So hopefully that was fun. I hope you can practice a lot, have fun learning how to draw Anna. Definitely don't worry if you don't get it in the first try. This is a video, so you can always pause it and watch it again, stop it here and there. But always with drawing a lot and practicing a lot, that always makes everything better. So try to have fun with it. And thank you very much for watching. And I hope to see you again next time. Thank you.